welcome to this podcast. And today is episode number 9 of Astrology and Health podcast. So we've been meeting every Wednesday at about this time, and today is the 16th of June 2021, and we've been meeting every Wednesday at about this time to talk about astrology and health. I'm an integrative oncologist, but I also studied 4 years of astrology, and since then I've been exploring and researching about the finding meaning to health issues through the lens of astrology, through reading a natal chart and giving meaning to that person, to whatever that diagnosis may be presenting for that person in life, and also to understand the energetic pattern, the energetic blueprint that person has in essence, and if he or she is living according or not to that energetic blueprint that we can see in the natal chart. And this is for me very, very useful information, because what I found is that many people are living a life that it's not really resonating with who they are. And disease, a diagnosis, may be the way that the soul is telling them to come back to their essence, to come back to who they really are, to come back to home, to come back to resonate and vibrate who they really are. So every month we take, every 4 weeks we start a new cycle, and I'm following the lunation cycles. Every new moon we start a new energy. It's like a seed that was planted in the last new moon, and the last new moon was in Gemini, and this was last week. So now during this 4 weeks we will be talking about the energy of Gemini, like if it were a seed that was planted and it grows throughout the month. It gets to its maximum point in the midst of the cycle, in the full moon, and then the second half of the month of the lunation cycle serves us to concentrate and really synthesize and take the essence of that energy of Gemini. So like I always explain when we talk about one of these zodiac energies, it is not a linear way of describing them, but we see that each of these energies, it's like a multifaceted stone, a multifaceted diamond. So we can talk about the different facets of the diamond. So last week we talked about Gemini and this energy of that has to do with our thoughts and our beliefs. And also we mentioned that Gemini has to do with the communication and the way we communicate. And it was very interesting because in the middle of the podcast, when I was talking and suddenly everything went off, the Instagram went off, and we had these communication problems. And this usually is something that it happens quite frequently when Mercury, which is the regent of the Gemini sign, is retrograde. This is very technical in astrology, but it does make us think about communication and about the miscommunications that it can happen between two people, between two countries, when communication does not flow, and when there's obstacles to communications, or even when we are expressing something and we are thinking that the other one is really getting exactly what we are thinking. So this does not work like this. We now know through quantum physics that how we perceive the world has a lot to do with who we are, with a perceiver. So even in a dialogue, we can ask each of the persons what he or she has heard or has understood of the conversation, and be sure that you will find discrepancies, because even if it was the same dialogue and the same people present there, each one of them has probably made emphasis or got more attention to one part of the dialogue and to another, or interpreted some part of it in a way or another. So this is very interesting to see how sometimes we get into conflicts, and it's because we thought we were saying the same thing and understanding the same thing, and we weren't. So communication can have very many levels of refinement. And this is a very good month to think about communication issues, and also our thinking and our process on how we put things into words. Doesn't it happen to you that sometimes you want to put something into words and you're thinking precisely what you want to say, but when it gets to really say it, to put it into words and to communicate it, it doesn't come out the same as you were thinking it. Or sometimes you were decided to go and express some issue to someone, and then when you got there, because of the circumstances or whatever, you did not have the courage, or you got distracted with something else, or something happened that you were not able to say exactly what you were planning to say. So communication can be very tricky in that sense. And it doesn't mean that just because I thought of something and I had the will to say it, that it comes out like I want. And today precisely what I wanted to talk about communication and thought processing. It's something related to something I was reading this morning in the Course of Miracles. And there is a section that talks about what is salvation. And salvation, according to the Course of Miracles, is this assurance that somewhere along the way in our lives we will come back to get to know God. And for me, like reading behind, giving different meanings to these words, and understanding that not everybody thinks about God in the same way. And me personally, I've changed very much the way I think about God, the way I was taught in Catholic school, and I was thinking of God as this male person with a long beard and very sage, with a lot of wisdom, but also very authoritarian, and etc. And I've come to think about God more of like this universal energy, the same energy that keeps all the planets moving around the sun and following the sun without bumping one into another. So that type of intelligence, or the intelligence that we can see in our bodies, the incredible intelligence of that very small egg that developed in this very, very, very complex and sophisticated organism. So that's how I see God. God in nature, when I'm in awe at a certain place in nature, and I think of God as that energy principle that keeps all this universe going, this micro cosmos within us and this macrocosmos. So I was reading this about salvation in the Course of Miracles this morning, and what it made me think is in this paragraph it explains how the thought of peace came right after the thought of war. Like for every aspect there is an opposite, and in the way that if we are able to see, not to stay with one pole of the situation, but we can see its counterpart, its complete opposite, and understand that both sides, like in a coin, both sides of the coin are part of something bigger, which is the whole coin. That is the path to salvation and the path to healing, like the possibility to start seeing in wholeness, to start living in wholeness, and not get stuck with that splitting mind that we have. So our mind has been trained to learn through opposites. So we know dark because we know light. We know pain because we know wellness. So we know joy because we know anguish and sorrow. So we are used to learn in opposites, but sometimes we get stuck with one of them. And this is because we have developed very much our analytical mind, which comes more from our left hemisphere, cerebral hemisphere, brain hemisphere. So our left brain is the one that analyzes. And analyzes means, lies means to cut, to split, to divide. And ana is the whole. So analysis means to divide the whole. And this is what our mind does. It divides the bigger complex picture into parts in order to be able to understand and to study something. So because we are not able to grasp the whole complexity of a situation, then we start splitting it in parts. And this happens all the time. Whenever we go in a garden and we look at the garden, and our mind is not trained to get the whole picture at once. So we divide, okay, trees, flowers, grass, and our mind has been trained to split. And then the tree, we see like the trunk and the foliage and the roots. And really, if we go to nature, this is not reality. When we go to a forest and we see the trees, and sometimes we look up and we're not able to see which branch comes from which tree, or more so if we go to the roots, then we see that the roots intermingle, and we are not able to divide like we divide in our minds, that each tree has its trunk and its roots and its foliage. Like we see like separate beings, and nature, especially if we go underground, and we see also all the fungi world underground, or the root world, and we see how everything is connected. Just like in our brains, all the neurons are connected like synapses, we can see the same type of connection underground. But our mind had to divide nature, or whatever it's studying, in parts, like if it were separate parts, in order to digest one part at a time and to understand. And this is what we do all the time. When we meet someone, we immediately, some people more than others, but we jump into judgment. For example, okay, this person is like this, or like tall, short, fat, thin, whatever. And then it's like by categorizing, then we have, it's easier for us to remember, oh yes, that tall guy with the black hair and whatever. So this is our left brain, which is an analysis. But our right brain has more the capacity to see the whole and to feel the whole. I don't know if you've, maybe you're familiar with that video. I think her name was Jill Taylor, and she's a scientist who had a stroke on the left brain, and precisely she was conscious when she was having the stroke that something was wrong, and she started seeing the world through the right brain, and she explains whatever was going on more from a right brain perspective. And it's incredible how you can see how we can perceive reality completely different, whether it's from the left brain or the right brain. So this is the splitting that Gemini talks about. Gemini is about splitting and opening more doors, like double clicking in your computer, double clicking in an app in order to open more information. That's what Gemini does. So our brain is very much trained, and lately we've been training our brain very much with this splitting and opening more information. And we know in astrology, the opposite, the counterpart of Gemini is Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is the the zodiac sign that talks to us about synthesizing. So after we split and we explore, then how do we synthesize all that information? And I think it's very interesting to reflect upon these issues, because I don't know how it's in your mind, but when we have a mind that it's quite agile and has been trained to be opening windows, we may be doing a lot of things at the time, and a lot of us have been trained in this multitasking, so opening millions of windows and having in our computer many windows opened and doing many things at one time. And precisely what meditation teaches us is that synthesis, is that coming back, calming and coming back to this precise moment. And for example, mindfulness teaches us to be able to grasp all the noises or all the sensations that are occurring in this one moment, not as split parts, but as a whole. So it's more integrating that left and right brain. And that is why meditation, it's like this portal to not only to calming our mind, but and to making our left and right brains work together to have a more wholesome perspective of our lives, of our experiences, of what's going on. So in that way, it's a portal to our self-knowledge and to our evolution. So Gemini is about all this, because Gemini has to do with how our brain works, how our mind works, how we get all anxious by opening more and more windows, and having the counterpart of Sagittarius is knowing that, okay, it's okay to explore and to open and to question, but it's also good to balance that with some activity to unite, to include, to synthesize, and to integrate, which is the opposite in Sagittarius. So in this week, I think it might be a good exercise just to observe. And if you have like a yoga practice or a meditation practice, you may have that observer much more developed. And just to observe how your mind goes, and whether it goes opening and opening more information, more issues, more simultaneous conversations. It's amazing how now with our phones and our applications, we are able to be in so many conversations at the same time. So it's very important that we have this practice of calming ourselves down and bringing some peace to our mind, and bringing exactly the opposite, to integrate all those all that information in one, and to be able to develop this capacity to be completely in the present moment and mindful of everything that is going on right now, that we are capturing with our senses, but without splitting it into parts, but instead to exercise this capacity to see the whole and to feel the whole and to perceive the whole, and not in smaller parts. So another issue that I wanted to share about this is, like, when we have this mind that it's ready to split, and to judge, to split, to categorize, and then to get stuck with one of the poles. So there is an interesting exercise also to do. Like, for example, a person that is very much in fear, let's say now with a pandemic, and is very much in fear to go someplace and get COVID. And it's very interesting to observe if your mind does that kind of tends to go into the catastrophic type of thinking. So let's say you are to go to some party, some reunion, whether it's outside, at the open air or not. But so if you notice your mind triggers this thought of, oh, what if I get COVID? What if I go there and I get myself sick? So it's interesting to do this exercise of observing what that thought, what feeling that thought brings, which possibly brings some uneasiness, some fear, some anguish, and then purposely think the complete opposite thought. So what if I go to this party and I come back home completely healthy? So that would be the opposite thought, for example. And see what that new thought brings to me. So how do I feel when I think completely the opposite? And in doing so, I mean, nobody can tell me what are the chances if it's a normal gathering. No, it's not a place where everybody is sick, but if it's a normal gathering, chances are that I may get COVID or I may not get COVID. So then I can choose consciously to stick to the thought that brings me the best feeling, the best emotion. Because if chances are that I may get or not get sick, then I choose to stay with a thought that brings me more wellness. So I choose to think I may go to the party and not get sick and come back home healthy. And that gives me some confidence, and that gives me a feeling of wellness. So I choose to stick with the thoughts that give me wellness when I have the chance to choose between one another, because both may be, one may be as truth as the other one. Nobody can tell me. Different it's when in a situation, okay, you were exposed to someone or you are already sick. I mean, what I'm saying is that whenever you see your mind triggers negative, catastrophic, polarizing thoughts, just do the exercise of what is the complete opposite of this thought, and see how you feel with that. And then see whether it's reasonable to choose one or the other, and then you choose the one that gives you more wellness. That's an interesting exercise to do also in this month of Gemini, when we are observing how our mind goes, how our thoughts go, how our mind is facilitated to trigger some type of thoughts. And if we want to retrain our mind, then that's the first step, to observe how it works, to observe what type of thoughts it triggers automatically, and to start choosing alternative thoughts that bring me more wellness. So I think that it's quite a couple of things to think about this week in Gemini, and in this lunation in Gemini. And I hope that you enjoyed this, the thoughts, that it may trigger you to go into one of these, to think more about some of the things that I mentioned, and maybe to look more into meditation, to look more into A Course of Miracles, to watch that video I mentioned about Jill Taylor, and to keep on in your self-knowledge and self-evolution and self-growing pathway, with love and with peace in your mind. So I wish you a nice week, and we'll see each other next week.